Hello, this is Stitchy Witchy Bee, and I am Bee. Welcome. Hi. Putting a face to the name, to the logo, to the hands that are in a lot of my videos. I won't be doing this every single video, but as long as I put out one video a month, I will be starting to do this type of intro, this type of introduction. I will also only be doing a fact and a tarot card pull once a month, so those will be kind of reduced and limited a little bit. If I do any other videos during the month, they'll just be very quick. Here's exactly what I was working on. Here's what this looked like. Here's this, that, and the other thing, and I'm done. Trying to keep it a little bit more doable for myself. But yes, hi. Some of you have seen my face just because of events, like Midsummer last year, Jingle Ball, Spring Mingle this year. But yeah, so this will be just a small piece going at the beginning of at least one video a month, usually right around the very tail end of the month or beginning of the new one. That's it. We're just gonna hop right into the projects for May. Thank you very much for being here. Alright, so this was kind of a cold open. I was struggling so much to figure out where the camera was trying to focus and what the frame was for this. I don't know what was going on. But here we are. This is the only project I've finished recently. This is Fraktur Raven by Vivsters. I did this 1/2 on 28 count malachite by Fiber on a Whim. Most of the floss choice is Weeks Dye Works Okie Finoki. The berries are in Chili by Karen Watercolors. The Raven is in a mix of Chalkboard by Roxy Floss Co. Actually, I think Chalkboard's this one. Black Licorice by Gentle Arts, and then there's a hint of Witching Hour by Gentle Arts as well, and then the DMC is 3046. The next thing I worked on, a little bit out of order, was some more of Mischief and Repose. It's one of the full coverage pieces that I'm working on. This is a pattern by Diana70 on Etsy. The painting is by John William Godward. I'm doing this on just 18 count Ada. Got a lot of clips. So I kind of came around, even on 18 count, it's quite large, so bear with me a moment. I had already done these bits over here. I followed along where the edge of this, I think it's like a blanket or a drapery of some sort, comes down to where some of the floor tiles are, which will give me this bottom corner. And then I'm going to try to start working diagonally up from there once I actually figure out where the exact corner is. This is one of my quote-unquote smaller full coverages. I think it only has quote-unquote 90,000 some stitches. So I was hoping to make some decent progress on it this year if possible. Let's see. Another that I've been working on, I've been making pretty good progress on it, is Black Cat Spell by Ketty. I'm just doing this on some 14 count that I tea-dyed myself. Hopefully we're all showing up. Yes, I think so. So this is the spell in Hocus Pocus that the Sanderson sisters use to turn Binks into a black cat. Twist the bones and bend the back, Ichida Capita Melica Mystica. Trim him of his baby fat, Ichida Capita Melica Mystica. Give him fur black as black. And then there will be an actual black cat down here in the bottom corner. That actually is quite a few of these remaining stitches. But I am really happy with how this is turning out. I did have to restart this at one point because I did the orientation of the entire pattern wrong, and it was not going to fit on what I originally had set aside for it. But this is working out very nicely. I also, one of the few things I've started, because I don't think I'd started this last time anyway, is Halloween Garden by Una Buena Pieza. I'm doing this on 18 count jack-o'-lantern by XJU Designs in just the called for DMC. I don't have very much done yet, and it'll show up a bit more when I actually get more of the darker colors in. The first one was kind of ghosting a bit, but I'm going to be working on a few patterns by Una Buena Pieza in some of the garden ones, and I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to doing them for a while, but I finally kind of pulled the proverbial trigger to get started on one. Let's see. I was just looking at where this was. Here it is. So I'm trying to remember, and I should have rewatched them, but I didn't. I don't think... no, I didn't know this at the time. So I'd been working a lot on Fruit of Plenty by Modern Folk Embroidery. I was having fun. It was a great time. Lots of laughs. But the more I started working on it, the more I realized that there were some mistakes. And I tried to clean them up, do some frogging, and I kept finding more mistakes and more mistakes and more mistakes. And to the point where we kind of had a few different people all looking at it. A friend, Giselle, from Giselle's Garden, was looking at it, trying to figure out where exactly the problem was. The problem was there wasn't just one problem. There were so many problems just all over the place. None of it was working. So I had to restart it, ultimately. So I just kind of flipped the fabric over. I think it'll be long enough because I hadn't done any trimming lengthwise. On the plus side, this gave me a chance to actually come in with the secondary color and did some work on that to help me narrow down exactly where I am and what I'm doing with it. Make sure I'm using that as a double check of that everything's correct. Nothing's off in terms of the count. And I'm really liking the variegation in the red. I'm doing this on 25 count even weave with dinky dyes. I believe this is black coral, and then I think this is shades of red. Just wanted to kind of treat myself a little bit with such a nice pattern. Still very sad that it didn't work, and it didn't work to a big degree, but it is what it is. We move forward, we continue onward. Another thing I was working on, here we go. I got a decent amount of progress. I didn't set out to work on Mermaid, but I did work on a bit of Mermaid. This is Siren of the Seas by Autumn Lane Designs. I got quite a bit of the tail done. This is being done on 28 count Spring Woods by Witch's Garden Crafts. Just using the called for 2/2. I do kind of wish I'd done 3/2. I know it would have been a struggle, but there is a bit of... I'm not usually super aggressive about coverage, but there's quite a bit peeking through on the blue. More than I would usually like. It's fine. It's fine. In the spirit of working on something kind of summery, I also got a little bit more progress, not much, done on Great White Christmas by Boomerang Stitches, which I am doing on a 28 count even weave called Midnight. I cannot remember who that's by. There's a lot of extra fabric on this one. I need to figure out where my edges are. I kind of finally got a bit more done on him and on his face. Started working my way down on this side. I've mentioned on previous videos, I'm doing this with a complete random hodgepodge of colors. If anybody does want to know what exactly I'm using, I can reference those because I don't have it in my current today notes. I just kind of went all over the place with it. Bear with me while I put things back away so I don't lose anything. Okay. Next, I don't know what it is. I've been making a ton of mistakes with my stitching lately. Because I got a decent amount of progress done on this one, which is Quaker Nature. And then I had to undo almost all of it. I was so annoyed. So I came in, did the top row of lettering. And then came in to try to come all the way across to this border. And I had everything. I was all the way over. And I realized that I made a mistake way back here. So it took me forever to frog all that. This was at least like, I think, 2 days worth of work that I had to undo, and I just haven't picked it back up again since then. Also, I think you can actually see, I can in person, hopefully it's showing up, the variegation of this. I should probably mention more about this. This is Nature Quaker by Tinsel Cross Stitch. This fabric is 18 count blush, which never shows up right on camera. It's more of like a grapefruit slash pink lemonade color. This is by Witch's Garden Crafts, and I'm using Bog Witch by Pirate and Robin for the floss. Hopefully the variegation is showing up. It's super strong to my own eye right now, but I don't know how well that'll be coming across with this lighting. It was super disappointing that one mistake just threw off everything. I also did a bit of work on a smaller pattern called Black Phillip by Stitch Sprout. I'm doing this on 18 count Spellcraft by Witch's Garden Crafts using Bone by Bestitch Me. And this is Black Phillip from the movie The Witch. I know I've talked about that before because I absolutely love it. That pattern is fairly simplistic. In a good way. In a good way. The only other thing I've been working on is Within a Dream by the Artsy Housewife. And part of what had kind of kept me from working on this more before was the pattern didn't load up nicely into Pattern Keeper. And I finally got that resolved, although then I made yet another mistake. Do we notice a theme? Been doing that a lot lately, and I feel like I'm paying attention, but then I come back and I find all these issues. So I started working on these motifs on the border, starting from here. By the time I got up to here, I didn't realize I had too big of a gap until I got down to the bottom, and there was no gap. It was actually a little bit short. So I decided to, rather than undo all of this, I was just going to extend the gap. It makes sense, I swear. Because this is just a bit of black kind of in between the corners and the top or the edge of this motif. So it won't throw things off. Most of the stuff that's in the middle of the pattern is kind of free floating. It'll work out fine. This is, again, Within a Dream by the Artsy Housewife. I'm doing this on 16 count Ren. Oh, I forgot to see who this Ren is by. I want to say Fiber on a Whim, but I'm not 100% on that. And I'm doing the Fancy Floss conversions for it. I do really love the pattern. Um, I really like a lot of Artsy Housewife stuff. And this one, I'm glad I'm back working on it again, that I've fixed the minor issue that was going on. That's it for projects. I do have a little bit of Stitchy Kindness, and then we're going to hop into the tarot card pull for the month of June, and then the fact. So I attend, sorry, lots of noises. I attend some semi-regular or regular Zoom calls with a few ladies. And one of them is Tammy with Leopard and Lace Co. XOXO. And she sent me some like zipper pulls and I think scissor fobs kinds of things. Just little goodies, and they're wonderful. Like everything about them is just super cute, super up my alley. Trying to kind of shake them down so they're in slightly better order. Little skeleton guy. Here's another look at, oops, if I can actually just set it down. They're lovely. This has got the Sanderson sisters. Not sure how well that'll show up, but the very funny thing is I actually have a shirt that says this already that I don't think she was at all aware of. So that worked out nicely. Just very sweet of her to see these and think of me, and also just spot on, exactly my taste. Completely perfect. Alright, for the tarot card pull, so the hilarious thing is I had set this deck aside because it was perfect for Valentine's Day, perfect for February, and then I didn't do any videos in February. So I do want to showcase this. It is a very beautiful deck. It's called the Destiny deck. It's by Lisa Santine. The actual cards are absolutely lovely. Beautiful gold foiling. This kind of rose gold look to them. This was a Kickstarter that I actually backed because even though this isn't quite my usual taste, I love it desperately. The card pull for this upcoming month is the Knight of Swords, which kind of stands for assertiveness, directness, impatience, being daring, ambitious. Sometimes when we're really obsessed or focused on a certain idea, we really want to manifest it, we overlook what we need to do or what difficulties we may come across in achieving it. We get so focused on the goal itself that we don't consider the steps involved with it. And sometimes that can mean consequences. The Knight of Swords is a very powerful figure, very full of life, full of energy, but it needs to be balanced with compassion, responsibility, actually taking into account all these other things. Sometimes when we get so focused on the goal itself, we don't see the steps on the way, any potential challenges. So it's a note to remember that those things do exist sometimes, and to at least be aware of them, be prepared for them. Don't be blindsided by these things we aren't necessarily expecting to have happen on the way to achieve a goal. But also don't be afraid to keep going toward the goal. That is a major feature for the Knight of Swords. And then the fact is, so there's this place, speaking of something a bit more on brand, there's a place in Antarctica that has been nicknamed Blood Falls. So there will be, like, it's not actual blood, but there will be a warning. Consider this your warning before I post some pictures. So what happens there is there's a kind of gap in this glacier, and water is coming from underneath it that is very iron oxide heavy salt water. And the second it reaches the open air, the iron oxide turns red. So it looks as if there's just a bunch of blood pouring out of this glacier. Since I don't have anything else, I'll put this back on screen. Sorry. And this is coming from about 1,300 feet below the ice. It is the only outlet for this water flow that they've been able to find so far. This was discovered in 1911 by Australian geologist Thomas Griffith Taylor. They first thought it might have been red algae, but they later found out it's just the iron that's in the water itself. This glacier is not actually frozen to the bedrock, so there's a lot of space for the salt water to exist underneath the glacier. It is considered ancient seawater. You know, it hasn't been exposed to the air until it comes out through this gap. They have found at least 17 different types of microbes and almost no oxygen. It's a very unusual kind of situation that they are now currently using to study harsh environments on Earth that may be useful to understand conditions on other planets, namely Mars or Europa, which is an ice-covered moon of Jupiter. Especially because there is microbial life that could help get a better understanding for everything. But it's just, of course, I hear the words blood falls and I have this weird fascination with Antarctica. I've had it for years, even before I saw the thing and, all of that. Just the fact that there are several science stations around there studying all different things. It's so fascinating to me. Yeah, it's a weird little thing, weird little place. That's all I have for today. Thank you very, very much for being here, for watching, especially since there has been a long break in general. Thank you to everyone I got to meet during Spring Mingle. I had a really great time. I always do at those types of events. They're wonderful. I was able to see, again, Giselle from Giselle's Garden again. I got to meet a few new people, including Eli from Thick Threads, Jennifer Spence from Little Paper Bear Co. on Instagram. There are a few other people on Instagram. I'll try to put their handles up on screen here that I was able to meet. I'm already looking forward to Midsummer, which is in mid to late July, I believe. But that is all I have for this time around. Thank you very much again for being here. Try to remember to get enough water, stay safe, focus on what makes you happy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.